Okay, it's now 7 o'clock, so if I can get everybody to be seated, please. Okay, and Bill, if you don't mind, Bill Rue, if you don't mind doing the invocation, appreciate it. Okay, so we'll get this meeting started. Welcome to the Montclair City Council meeting on this June 17. We will obviously begin with the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I know Councilmember Bill Rue will lead us in the invocation, and who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Andrea?
Also Bill Rue.
Okay, then today Bill is playing double header today for us, so please stand. Are you okay, Bill? Okay.
Gracious and heavenly Creator, you have made us a family of one. We come to you with different tongues. We come to you with different traditions. We come to you in ways that are unique and special to us. Each one of us imbues your spirit. Each one of us holds you. Each one of us needs you. Tonight, may you watch over this council. May you see that the decisions we make are decisions that are in the best interest of this community and in the best interest of the last, the least, the lost, and the lonely. Look nicely upon our community. Bless everyone here who calls it home, whether we're a resident, business owner, or somebody who's just driving through. Keep all of us safe, keep our families safe. And as we look to you, may you continue to inspire each of us to do our best. Amen. Please join me as we salute the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Rue, and I apologize for the last minute request. So we will now do roll call.
Councilmember Lopez.
I'm here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Rue.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
I'm here.
And Mayor Dutray.
I'm here.
Thank you.
So the next item is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address an item not on the agenda or one of the consent calendar items that are on the agenda. You'll have 5 minutes, and then you obviously fill out a card. And the city clerk, do you have any speakers today?
Yes. So we have some speakers on agenda items and mostly non-agenda items. The first one was submitted online, so it's a written comment that I can go ahead and read right now first.
Okay.
This is from Christian Nava, a Montclair resident. Individuals with disabilities often lack sufficient access and opportunities to thrive within their communities. I propose the implementation of a city-funded internship program. This initiative will provide them with the opportunity to explore various career paths and cultivate valuable skills in a professional setting. So that was the one written comment
Okay.
for public comment. And then the rest are speaker cards that were submitted. So first is Jay, sorry, I can't read the last name. Jay? Minnick. Okay, Minnick.
Okay, come on down, sir. Hello, Jay, how you doing again?
Good.
It's all yours.
My question is regarding the Monte Vista Avenue under the 10 freeway. A lot of my neighbors have been complaining. I almost got in an accident this past weekend by somebody running the left turn, and the lady apologized to me and told me she didn't understand the markings on that street at the time. And luckily, I felt pretty surprised when she pulled me over and apologized to me. But it seems like it's taking a long time, and I'd like to get some answers on what's going on with that.
Okay, I think I can answer your question. It has been taking a long time. I serve on the the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority Board, which is the responsible agency for the project. And I believe the goal is to have it mostly done during the month of July. So Edison's supposed to be out there. I'm not sure if Edison's been out there. I do see people working on wires. They were supposed to be paving here. Hopefully they'll start paving this week and doing the final touches, the sidewalks, the curbs, and all that. So that is the information we got the latter part of May, but it is close to being completed. But there's supposed to be a big improvement to take place here soon. So that's what we've been told. I'll keep my fingers crossed that by July 1, I'm hoping, or close to July 1, we're close to having that completed and all the lanes will be open.
Okay, thank you.
And the other key thing again is Edison. And Edison is notorious to be late on projects, so. But I appreciate you here and I appreciate your patience. It's been very long. I think this is supposed to be done last year.
Yeah, it seems like it's taken months to complete.
There's other issues I can't talk about that could be all litigated later on, but that's part of it, so. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next is Xavier Mendez.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, City Manager, staff. Just here to talk about one thing. I actually did talk to John earlier this week about a couple other items. But I just was talking to Brian Ventura, or Captain Ventura, about theft with catalytic converters. Out in LA, they're doing some programs, and then there's actually one that's going to be held on June 19th at Calvary Chapel in Diamond Bar, where they do free etching on catalytic converters for people. So if it gets stolen, a lot of times they'll have like their name on it or their identification number. But talking to Brian, he also just mentioned to me that they haven't had a lot of logs lately for catalytic converters being stolen in this area in Montclair. So that's a great thing. But he also said that he believed that the car manufacturers were going to start putting VIN numbers also on the catalytic. So that may even eliminate having to do that unless you have an older car and need to get it etched. So that was it. Just wanted to bring it to your attention just about those things. And that's it. Just hopefully have a great meeting.
That's a good idea, but Sacramento, at least there's 14 bills in Sacramento. You probably all know to deal with retail theft and fentanyl. And I'm not sure if they presented what's called the poison bill, the amendments, because they're signed by the governor and Proposition 47, it's on the ballot to be reformed. The amendments can cause those 14 bills to go away. So we'll see what happens, but that's part of the issue. Is I think our old police chief wants to tell me you need accountability on the streets, and I know I'm not supposed to speak right now, but I appreciate you talking.
Well, thank you.
Well, it's in the back of my mind right now, so thanks. All right, I promise not to say anything else.
All right, the next speaker is Muktika Nanda.
Hello. Hi. Hello again.
Nityanandam, that's a way of saying wishing everybody eternal bliss. And I thank the City Council for the opportunity to be able to talk and present in front of you. And my name is Muktika Ananda, and I represent the United States of Kailasa. I'm the coordinator for Kailasa USA, Nityanandeshwara Hindu Temple here. And we're an ancient enlightened civilization that has been recognized by many world leaders and dignitaries, including members of the House, Senate, Congress, and so forth. And the city, and especially Montclair, has been very kind and has helped us a lot in how we're able to offer our services here. We are the world headquarters, and we're deeply engaged in local communities through a variety of initiatives like free meditation programs, yoga classes, women's empowerment programs, youth leadership support, mental wellness programs, free organic food services to everybody including local homeless shelters and anybody who walks in saying they're hungry. We are really looking to make an impact in the community. And our continued efforts to build deep bridges with the Hindu community and the other communities around, we have been very, very actively involved, bringing the interfaith community together to support peace and coexistence in all the communities here, and for mental wellness of all citizens, which is one of the most important things we're seeing that is impacting our citizens around here. We would love to take the opportunity to invite the mayor and the city council to join us on July 20th. It's a Saturday in the afternoon for a parade, which we would love to do as part of an interfaith and an event. It is for the event called Guru Purnima, where we celebrate the presence of divine enlightened masters in our lives. And we would love for the city to be part of this with us. Through this, we want to truly bring a cultural, traditional, and economic upliftment in the city of Montclair. We would love to work with the city to make this happen. That has always been part of what we strive for. And the guru who is guiding us is leading us in the right path to make sure that we uphold righteousness, we are integrated, we are responsible, and we take ownership for the services and everything that we provide to the various cities that we work with. So with this, I want to extend this invitation by sharing a book that we have here and the invite to the mayor and to the city council to please join us on this very, very profound event that means a lot for us. And in this event, we'll be bringing together several dignitaries. We're inviting senators and Congress representatives and assembly members to the event. And we also have interfaith and local community entrepreneurs coming and joining us. So we'd love for this opportunity to have the city join us.
I'll be out of town that day. I'll be in Bacon, Tulare, actually. But I wish you success on Saturday.
All right.
Thank you.
Maybe present this to the
Yeah,
city?
do you want to present that to the city clerk?
Sure.
Oh. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Okay, I'm sorry.
That is all I have
That's
for
all you have?
regular
Okay.
public comment.
Okay, we're down to public comments, and now we'll go down to public hearings, and we have one item, which is a repeat item from the last meeting, which is the first reading. We're going to ask staff, they can just explain why we're having a repeat of this item as a first reading.
Okay, glad to do that. Good evening, Mayor Dutray and fellow council members. The item before you tonight is a revised version of ordinance number 24-1006. And this will be a new first reading for that ordinance, as I'll explain in a minute. But the staff report indicates that this new ordinance reading was required because we made some changes to the document itself. The changes were eliminating of a certain section dealing with income reporting, and the other changes were minor in nature, but they were intended to make the numbering system and format of the proposed ordinance to be consistent with our municipal code format and numbering system, as well as any changes that were required to make the numbering system of the state's legislature consistent with our proposed ordinance. So, as you recall, the concern that was raised at the June 3rd meeting before you had to do with income reporting requirements that were contained in section 11.23050H. The text of that section was provided in your staff report that I think on towards the end of the report you'll see that it's put there, and then it's actually crossed out because that's what was intended, we're proposing to do with that section. although this is a provision that many cities have included in their updates, one I can think of right away is Upland, I think, has a reporting element in their update ordinance. It's not statutorily required at this point. That doesn't mean that next year we might be back here adding it back to this ordinance. We never quite know what the legislature will do with particular laws that they've already thought they resolved, but they make revisions from time to time, and that can happen again with this. So after consultation with our special counsel as well as City Attorney Robbins, we determined that this was probably the appropriate time to maybe delete this section and then maybe deal with this at a later date and time if that comes our way by means of a state legislation. So the document you have before you in your staff report or in your packets is the revised version that deletes section 1123 050H from the proposal. Other than that, there were no substantive changes other than I just mentioned earlier about formatting. There were no other text changes made to the staff report or to the proposed ordinance. So with those changes, we'd recommend you conduct your first reading and then set your second reading date for the next meeting in July.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any members of the public who wishes to address the city council on this item?
I do have one comment that was received from the public. It was also submitted via email in writing. This is also from Christian Nava. Please consider ADU and JADU to be restricted to low income and extremely low income. And that's the end of the comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other members of the public wish to speak? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring this item back to the city council. As noted again, this is a repeat first reading. We already had a presentation. The changes were noted by staff. I don't see anybody queuing up here. Councilman Lopez?
Yeah, just for clarification again, or confirmation, Mr. Diaz, we're basically eliminating the rental income disclosure requirements to be brought back at a future time, whatever time frame that might be.
Well, it's a permanent change for this ordinance. All I mentioned was that if the state changes the law again with respect to this kind of provision, then we would be back if and when that ever happens. So we'll be good for until then.
But no income,
No
rental
income reporting. There is no income reporting as part of this proposed ordinance.
Okay. And I see that the landscaping requirement is still in the proposed ordinance, which I'm still not in favor of. Again, I will raise the issue for an ADU or a converted garage, let's say adjacent to an alleyway that is not in public view. We're basically going to require landscaping around that particular structure when there is no direct access to a street or sidewalk or public view other than an alley, and the folks that utilize the alley are cut across the alley to get from one street to the other, or trash personnel would be the only individuals seeing the landscape. So unless we had an exemption for landscape for ADUs that are adjacent to alleys, I still just think this is an unnecessary requirement, but I expressed that opinion at the last meeting.
Councilman Rue?
I too am glad to see that the rental income dollar amount is not, or the family's income is not in here. I think it is a bit intrusive. As far as landscaping, I support this ordinance very much. In my other life, I worked on this bill quite closely, so I do have a sense of ownership with it. But I also see the landscape issue as being a bit onerous. If it's sitting in the front yard, yes, you want this, but if it's sitting back behind a gate or something, I don't know if the landscape requirement is as necessary. Many these ADUs and junior ADUs are not going to be in the front anyway. You're not going to see it is going to be behind a home. So I hope we can take another look at that. And then just in driving throughout the city, I don't see, and I know we have many ADUs and junior ADUs, I have not seen issues that they are sticking out in a way that makes them unattractive. They seem to be fairly attractive. I think I've said this before, I like what Chino has in place where they have, I think, 4 to 5 shelf-ready plans for ADUs that you can just pull off the shelf and use them. You don't need to go to an architect or anything else if it's the various architectural styles in their community. And looking at that, we might be able to do something along those lines. It'll save residents money because once it's through, it's already to the standards that have been set up, and it's much easier to work with. If you want to do your own, that's fine, but in my conversations with a few people in Chino, they have said that the styles they have proven to be very popular with different residents. I do not know of any other community around us that's doing shelf-ready. There could be, I just don't know them. This is overall something that is a positive for the community. We shelter people. In many cases, in the research I have found, a lot of times families are changing. What will happen is the people who used to live in the main house move into the junior ADU or the ADU, and their children now move into the main house. I have a friend of mine in Upland that happened to her about 5-6 years ago, or right after this law went in, and she's very happy. She has a smaller unit. Her children live in the main house, which is rather large, and everything is just perfect for them. And for many people, that's what will happen. In other cases, it may be used temporarily by a family when a student returns home from college, and they need to be there for 3-4 months, then return to college. So I see this overall as a positive, and I'm very much in favor of it. There, as I said, I'm have an issue with the landscape, but maybe we can work on that.
Well, thank you very much. And I think the landscape requirement, the way I read this on page 18 of the staff report, landscape requirements, evergreen landscaping screen must be planted and maintained between the ADU and adjacent parcels as follows. And I believe the adjacent parcel is the adjacent property owner.
Yes.
For screening purposes.
Yes.
So at least one 15-gallon size plant shall be provided for every 5 linear foot of exterior wall. So this is the exterior of the wall, not the interior of the wall. The interior of the property, I believe. That's the way I understand it.
And it's intended to provide privacy for both parties on either side of the property line. And if you look at number 2 in that section,
Right.
there is an exemption for somebody who already has a solid wall or fence, it says, but we would interpret it as be wall and fence.
Yeah,
And you wouldn't have to put any landscaping.
Yes, an alternative, a solid fence of at least 6 feet in height may be installed. So,
And I can honestly say it's about 98% of everything we've done there's a wall or a fence on the
Right.
property line. But
Okay.
It just doesn't really fit.
Yeah, but in that instance, are we requiring landscaping in those
Ahead.
98% instances?
No, because they don't need it. They could be exempt even now, but this calls for a hedge, not necessarily. This is more like trying to put in a hedge so it can grow up to 6 feet high and provide the privacy that's required. If you didn't have a fence or a wall at the PL where this would apply.
Okay, then that brings another question. And Mr. City Manager, I believe the home on San Jose Street, closer to the freeway, where we had a separate issue, but I'm bringing the property up because the back side of that property, I believe, goes into a cul-de-sac, and there is no fence on that property. Do you know the property I'm talking about?
let's, is that an ADU issue there?
No, well, no, I'm talking about, it doesn't
Okay,
have
well,
any
that's not an
fencing.
issue for us to discuss here.
Sure
This
it
is
does.
This is an ADU. This is regarding the landscaping
Well,
and the ordinance
there
itself.
are illegal dwellings on that property, but there's
well, you know
no
what?
hedge there. So would that property be required to install a 6-foot?
That's not,
hedge?
this is not the appropriate place for that.
And I don't know where the hell it is then.
Well, this is regarding ADUs, landscape requirements for screening purposes.
I'm
If you wanna
trying to
talk the
draw a
city manager on that issue, you
correlation
can
between
discuss.
properties that lack a back wall, like he alluded to. Clearly, it's germane to the topic.
Okay. All right, Councilman Rue.
This is not about landscaping. Just in looking at the many types of ADUs, there are some on the market that are prefab. You just click them together. You can do any architectural style you want. I've seen at least a dozen different styles. Are those permitted under this?
They would be permitted. Actually, talked to someone today that came in with a proposal for a prefab. They would have to bring in information to make sure that they could be installed. I mean, they meet minimum building safety requirements. And then our only stipulation is that they'd have to be permanently installed on a foundation with utility hookups and as much of a style as you can get to match the house that's the main house on the property.
So as long as, and the prefab I've seen all meet current building standards.
Yeah,
Uniform
there's
building code.
prefabs, and then there's a lot of different variety of types of housing units that are being done now and marketed as sort of easy to get, easy to
Right.
purchase and move on, but they do require to be installed in a permanent fashion.
So a certain types of prefab would be permitted. What about the units? And I have not actually seen any on a property. I have seen them simply at these shows you go to where they are on a trailer. Would those be permitted?
No, they'd have to be permanently, well, they could be transported on a trailer, but they would have to be permanently installed on a foundation so that there wouldn't be.
Because some of them, the ones, they're up on a small trailer. You can hook up the laterals.
Yeah, I saw, again, another person came in the last week with a similar situation. I haven't seen one done anywhere with the tires on them, but usually that connotes a mobile home as opposed to a manufactured home, where you would buy it in a factory, prefab, and they would smooth on the site and then put and installed permanently on the site, so it'd stay there for permanently.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lopez, you have anything else?
Yeah, on the prefab issue, I had thought that the city was making recommendations on having, I'm just throwing out a number, 5 to 7 recommended designs to give anyone interested in doing an ADU or junior ADU. Are we no longer doing that? Giving them suggestions that are already approved?
Yeah, we've been working on a standards. We have three possible units. We're real close to getting those completed so that they could be available for the public who's interested in purchase, or at least using them. They don't have to purchase it, but they use them. Those designs. I was going to say something, but yeah. So we are working on it. We're pretty close to getting those launched in the near future.
3 of them? Okay.
And they have about 3 different styles, so you can kind of pick. They're designed to be sort of fit in with the general styles that we have in town.
Can I get a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. Excuse me.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, second by Councilmember Bill Rue. This be read by name and number only, first reading, no further reading required. And let's have a electronic vote. Okay. All right, adopted 5-0. City Clerk?
Sorry, I'm going to go ahead and read it now.
Hey, this time I waited for you.
Yes. Ordinance number 24-1006, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Montclair adopting zoning code amendment number 2024-21 to repeal and replace Chapter 11.23 of the Montclair Municipal Code relating to accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and junior accessory dwelling units, JADUs, in the City of Montclair and determining the ordinance to be exempt from CEQA.
All right. Next item is the consent calendar. So did you say you have some speakers on consent calendar items?
Yes, so I have one for item D1, D as in dog. I think that was the only
Okay,
regular
let's do it.
consent calendar item. Do you want me to go ahead and call them
Yeah,
now?
go ahead.
Okay. Matthew Wheaton.
Good evening,
Hello.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, City staff. Mine was just coming up for a comment tonight about the future road projects. When we did paving through my neighborhood roughly about 2 years ago, my area, we really didn't need to have our roads repaved. It still was fairly nice. So mine's kind of a two-parter. How do we justify which areas get their roads redone first? And then the second part, anybody that's over off of Fremont, Geneva area, their roads just got ripped up due to SoCal gas project. And then the replacement roads that were put back in were not the same quality. They're a lower quality. So I was just kind of curious if the city is working in conjunction with SoCal Gas, so that way we're not, having to replace roads with lower quality
Okay,
roads.
all right. We'll get Monica at the appropriate time to answer that question.
Okay.
But thank you, Matt.
Fantastic.
Whenever you feel like coming up, Monica. So at this time, we have the consent calendar items on the agenda. And anybody on my left that want to pull a consent calendar item? You can come up, Monica. Let me just go through this first process. Anybody on my left? Anybody?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item C like Charles 4.
C4, okay. Charles 4. Is that it? Okay,
like
and then I
Charles
was
4.
actually gonna, I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
You done?
I'm done.
Yeah, I was gonna pull the Prop 218, which is item D2 here, so I'm gonna pull that one. And anybody on my right wanna pull an item?
I had wanted to pull D2, but that's already been pulled.
Anybody else? Am I right?
Mr. Mayor, C Charlie 2.
C2?
I also was going to pull D1, and D2's already been pulled.
So C2, C4. And I have a question on C5 real quick, so I'll pull C5. D1, here's D1, based on this question here. Am I correct? You have a question on D1, Ben?
Yes, I do.
All right, D1, and then D2. So, all right, Monica, where's Monica?
Out there.
We took him out into the lobby to speak
Okay.
with him.
All right, well then, we'll get started then, and we'll start with item C, is it C2?
Yes.
Yeah, C2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hold on here, where are my notes? On page 43 of the staff report, the second complete paragraph, as part of the general plan update, staff has included a section that addresses government code, et cetera, and includes broad objectives for land use, et cetera, et cetera. Unless I'm missing something, I wanted to see what specifically the language was for a section. What is in that? What's the new phraseology of that added section that staff is including into this proposal?
The language that's in General Government Code 56033.5, I would have to report back to you on that.
It would have been great to have that in the staff report, since staff is adding a section to this provision. It would have been great to look at that.
Well, Mr. Fuentes is on the line. Maybe he might have an answer.
Director Fuentes, can you speak now?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So that, good evening, City Council. That section in the government code is a requirement that requires cities that are doing their general plan update to include a section that discusses very preliminarily the development that can occur in one city's sphere of influence. It has some minor provisions that just kind of look at a very cursory overview of planning and zoning for that area, but it's very cursory. And so what we're looking at doing is actually developing an entire specific plan study for the SOI area. So it would be much broader than what we're currently required to do under the current part of the general plan.
Is it safe to say that the section then is under development itself?
You can say that, but what the government code basically just says is that as part of a city's general plan update, you are required to do a very cursory, high-level overview of what development could occur in a city's sphere of influence, but it doesn't really go into much detail. So you could do very broad zoning categories, but it's just something that kind of looks at if a sphere of influence were to be annexed into a city, what would the zoning be? So basically, as part of our general plan right now, it's has a broad zoning category, but what the intent of doing this specific plan study would to be to actually look at what could feasibly, based on economic analysis, what could actually be developed in the city's sphere of influence, as well as mechanisms in place to actually put in the infrastructure that could occur in that area and what type of economic studies could be needed. So the reference in the government code is just a new requirement that requires, as part of a general plan update, to do a very cursory preliminary overview of what could possibly occur as part of development if the areas were to be annexed.
Okay, I really appreciate the explanation.
Okay.
My next question, with respect to the sphere of influence study and the potential annexation that it addresses, is this a blanket look at annexing the southern areas? Is that what we're pretty much looking at here?
No, that is nothing to do with annexation. This is to simply conduct a general plan study of the area to determine the potential for development of that area, implementation of zoning requirements for the area, and then to assess the cost related to the improvements that would be necessary for the area, and then the city council could make a advised opinion as to whether or not they want to proceed with annexation. Of course, you have to realize as well that residents within the area do have to agree to annexation.
So then the availability, however, to annex in is still on the table, similar to the car wash down there on Central and Mission?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's what I was getting at. And then I'm just glad to see that the San Bernardino County has offered $200,000 to help with the cost of this study. So thank you to Supervisor Hackman's office and the county for that disbursement, which would help alleviate some of the costs. I believe that is it on the item, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so next item will be item C4, which is the catering systems, Inc. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I just would like to hear some clarification on catering services that we provide. I've heard a little bit of grumbling, interestingly, when I'm in the grocery store, I hear the grumbling, but the funding for those catering services, does it come, I think the staff report says it does not come from the general fund. Can you clarify that for us, please, Ms. Richter?
Johnson, I'd be happy to answer your question. The funding for the nutrition program at the senior center is through a grant that we receive from San Bernardino County, the Department of Aging and Adult Services, and that helps balance the costs. There is a donation that is required, but required that we ask for a donation, but that doesn't mean that the person that is getting the lunch has to donate. That we just ask that they do. And the set amount from the county is $3 for a senior that's 60 and older. So as you can kind of see by the staff report, that's less than what we're paying for the meal, but the grant helps offset and subsidize the funding for that.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
All right. That's it. Regarding item C5 with Anderson Air Conditioning, so there is no, this is a sole source request, and I believe because the equipment is a Carrier, that's the product, and that's what the upgrade requires. Anderson is the best qualified company to do the work.
Yes, that is correct. All of our air conditioning units on our various facilities are Carrier. Not only the air conditioning units, but all of the associated equipment related to supporting the HVAC systems throughout all the buildings are proprietary related to Carrier, so it would be extraordinarily expensive to migrate from Carrier to a different vendor. Plus, they all seem to have their own issues. So Carrier has a unique issue related to their electronics, and we have survived all of these decades with it, but we will have to continue to do so. Otherwise, we would really be looking at a very expensive proposition to migrate away from Carrier.
So Anderson is essentially a certified vendor for carriers, it sounds like it.
They are.
One
They're
that's
licensed by Carrier.
Right.
They are a vendor that the city has historically used. They're familiar with our
Got it.
systems.
Okay, we'll go to item D1 now. This is back to SB1. Did you have a question on this, Ben? Yes. Okay, before you that, come on up, Monica, because maybe we'll address the first question I was addressed. Respond to the first question by the resident.
Yeah, so good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members, staff. In regards to our paving of the city roadways, we do have 6 different areas or zones that we pave in a cycle. I don't know if you remember, but we recently paved areas 5 and 6 and some of areas 2 and 3 that were missed earlier. So that's how we do the program. His other question as to the gas company, you know, when they come in, we do a project, a paving project, and then they come in and tear up our streets. We do work with them to make sure that they restore the pavement to a good condition. I have given the resident my card so he can notify me of the address or the area of problem, so we can have our inspector take a look at it and make sure it's done properly.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and there's a question by Councilmember Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, and I believe, Monica, you're the right person to answer this. So we are estimated to get just over $2 million through the RMRA funding. Now, this will only go, the only project listed is the Silicon Avenue Street Rehabilitation Project, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
for now, yes.
And I'm assuming, based upon the amount that we're getting and the requests that you're asking council to submit for this, a study has already been done?
We are currently in design of that project, so.
As far as a cost analysis, so we're pretty on the money with respect to this is adequate source of funding to make sure that the project is complete. We're not going to be short of funds anywhere?
I don't know yet. I don't have preliminary estimates. We are going to look at 3 different options, so I don't have an answer for you today. But every year, we do this every year, so every year I can change the amount, not the amounts, but even the projects. So if we don't have enough, I will let you know, but we should be able to use all the SB1 funding for this project.
Well, I would hope we would use all of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have to return it, but I mean, we could put it to good use. One thing in the staff report that I appreciate is that this project, which would rehabilitate, as stated, the Silicon Avenue Street Rehabilitation Project, the life expectancy of this rehabilitation will be 30 years. So it'll be money put to good use. So for the residents' sake, that particular area of town, once it's completed, should be in good shape for at least 30 years, barring any natural disasters. But
Yeah,
thank you.
It will look better once it's done with curb, gutter, sidewalk, new pavement, all of that.
Absolutely.
Definitely a street that definitely needs it, an area that is suffering, and it's also connecting to the new industrial
To 3rd Street,
project
yes.
on 3rd Street. Okay,
Yeah, it also includes paving of 3rd Street as well.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, last item on the consent calendar is D2. This is the Prop 218 for the rate increases for refuse and for sewage. I don't know, I don't think staff's got a presentation tonight. Or you can do kind of brief the council how this process works. That's fine. Yeah. If you have, just give us, that'd be great. Just a little summary. Go ahead.
Summarize a little bit what we're doing tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So at this time tonight, what we're presenting to you, the sewer and rate increases that are contained in the staff report is for informational purposes only. Because tonight what we need from the council is the authorization to notice the property owners in the city of Montclair about the Proposition 218 public hearing. So we've completed the notice, it's been prepared, and we're waiting for your approval to get the process going to get that mailed out to our property owners. So that will be mailed out to the property owners. They will, the public hearing then would have to be scheduled no later than 45 days after that notice gets mailed. And so our scheduled public hearing is August 19th. And the property owners, between the time they get the notice and the public hearing August 19th, they can do a written protest. And if the majority of the residents and the property owners don't want this rate increase, then we can't do it. It won't be implemented. So right now, as it stands right now, the 2024 rate that's shown in the rate caps, that is the rate that Burtec is requesting for their increase. And that is the rate that will be the sewer rate increase if it's approved. And then, so that's our base rate. And then each year after that, we're increasing it by 10% each year so that we have room to make those increases as they're requested. In the history that we've been doing this, we've never ever met the rate cap. That's just a cap. It's not what the rates are going to be set at. But if we lower it and for some instance the rates are going to be higher than that, we'd have to do the whole Prop 218 process over again. So, and with the recent changes that the state of California has made, especially to refuse collection, and the additional things that Burtec has to do to comply, and we have to do to comply with those laws, we wanted to give ourselves a little bit more room just so we have it. Burtec, their service rate increase, the cap, they can not go higher than 5%. That's part of their contract. But that's only one component of the trash rate. There's other pass-through rates that also go up. So we have to take those into account. And Burtec has, I don't believe their service rate has ever gone up 5%. It goes by CPI. It's always been around 3.5%. The sewer rate, those are, you know, IUA gives us their sewage treatment rate, so we have to start with that.
That's right.
And then we have our components that helps us maintain our sewers. That's what I have for tonight.
Okay.
So I would like to emphasize that the rates being proposed by Burtec as well as the IUA rates are both contractual rates. So Burtec has in their contract that they're entitled to CPI on an annual basis. And IUA, as a special district, has the authority under the state of California to adopt its own schedule of rates. We are simply a pass-through agency for IUA. However, under the contract, we're responsible for collecting those fees. Being the agency responsible for collecting the fees, we are also responsible for conducting the Proposition 218 hearing on behalf of IUA. And obviously, as the local agency and Burtec being a private corporation, we are obviously clearly responsible for conducting the Proposition 218 hearing in relation to Burtec. It does need to be noted that if the council chooses not to implement the 5-year schedule of maximum rates for each of these two different services, then the cost of the increases, which these individual organizations are entitled to, would have to be absorbed by the general fund. As indicated, the caps are at approximately 10% above the base year, which Burtec asked for an increase this year, and IUA passed last year a schedule of 2-year rate increases. So we're using those bases for each of those first years, or in the case of IUA, the second year, the base rate is going to be the start for the first year, and then thereafter, as Ms. Colbeck indicated, there would be 10% increases beyond that to the maximum rate cap. Not indicative of what the rates will ultimately be proposed by Burtec and IUA and what's approved by the City Council. But that's an important caveat to this. The maximum rate caps are only that, and we've never reached those maximum rate caps. There's no reason to think that we'll come close to meeting those rate caps now, but it is important that we have that buffer because of unknown circumstances and because we do not want to necessarily do repeat Proposition 218 hearings within that 5-year time frame that we are allowed to extend this out to under state court interpretation, because it is very costly every time we do this. So we propose these 10% caps only for that purpose.
And I'd also like to note that even though we do have these rate caps, each year we do an increase, we will still come back to council for approval for those increases.
Okay. Okay, so you just answered what my first question is, that each time, if there is a rate increase for sewage or for refuse, it does come back to the council.
Correct.
Even though the Prop 218 has been approved, it still has to come back to council.
Yes.
Before those rates go into adjust it. And so Mike, there was a catch-up fee from 2022, and it was $2.85 in 2022, and now it's zero. What's the catch-up fee?
Catch-up fee was because of COVID-19, the pandemic, the city decided not to
Okay.
impose a rate increase on
Right.
our residents and commercial customers. So Burtech needed to kind of catch up that money, extra money that they had to put out to help cover that cost. And so it was just a temporarily one-year rate, so that rate has been subtracted now.
Got it. So
From
that
the
was,
rate.
that was a defer adjustment increase, okay?
Yes.
Regarding the residential refuse, so the last increase took place in January 23.
Correct.
And then the prior adjustment took place in 2019?
Yes, that is correct.
So we've only had two increases, 2019, 2023, and obviously this catch-up fee would have been another one, but it got deferred. So we
Right.
probably would have had 3 in 5 years. Is that way?
Correct.
And the same applies to the commercial rates as well? We've had two?
That is correct, 2019 and 2023.
Okay, so we've
Yes.
had 2 in 5 years of
Right.
commercial increases, and you could have said 3 in 5 years.
And-
Okay.
And typically, it's a year in between, but we're going to be a year and a half
Okay.
since the last increase.
I know this is not in the staff report today, but when we have our hearing, can we have the other surrounding cities? We can kind of see what the other surrounding cities charge for refuse as well,
Yes.
just for a comparison. And that's always very helpful.
Yes, we can add that.
I noticed that the biggest increases here is recyclable, green waste, and food waste cost. I don't know if maybe we get, these are the big percentage increases, those 3 categories. Maybe you can kind of explain a little more. I know all 3 have been very volatile, especially the waste cost. Food waste is a new one, but maybe we can get a couple minutes. I don't know, Mike, you're in the audience. If you want to,
Hey, Mike Erickson
you can talk about those 3.
speak on that.
Yeah, well, he's moving up to the microphone. The food waste is a new program.
Right.
And under state law, and Burtech has absorbed the cost in relation to implementing that program, and now it's simply time to move that cost onto the recipients of that service. So that's the reason why you're seeing that new fee increase right there. As far as the recyclables and the green waste, those are commodities that are subject to the variances of the marketplace. And in the case of recyclables, there's less of a demand for recyclables.
Right.
However, Burtech still has a requirement to process all recyclables. The market isn't there, so it's more costly for them now to process those recyclables because of the lack of a sufficient market. So this means that the rate has to fall back to the ratepayer because they still have to pay for the cost of the recyclables. Same thing with green waste. As you know, under state law, there's a requirement that we meet a target level in relation to green waste recycling as well as the normal recycling. And each year, as that target increases, the processing requirements related to the meeting those targets increases, as well as the tipping fee costs associated with the disposal of those materials. So I think that's what you're looking at.
Anything else you want to add?
Absolutely. Well, once again, members of the council, mayor, members of the council, Mike Aragon, Vice President with Burtech Waste Industries. I think back in 23, City Manager Mr. Ed Starr gave the presentation on our program. Ed should be here because he knows it almost better than I do. And his explanation that he just gave was as complete as it could be. I don't know if I could add much more to that with regard to the commodities and how it impacts our processing costs, meeting state mandate, and then how the markets reflect that.
Well, I know at one point China was buying recyclables several years ago, and they stopped.
Right.
I know that hurt the
Now,
market.
that market is slowly coming back, but a lot of that is in the mixed paper and cardboard, which is probably 70% of what we collect in your blue barrels that are out there. A lot of people already recycle their aluminum cans, for example, and anything with a CRV value.
Right.
But as Mr. Starr indicated, we are still responsible by the state to
Right.
report. And it works out well. The cities, I work with Janet on the programs that we have in the city, and Cal Recycle is very satisfied with the city of Montclair.
Great, thank you. Don't go too far, because I think, if you want to sit, that's fine, but.
Oh, okay.
Or you want to stand there too, it's up to you. Just one more last question. The Part 3 and Part 4 fees under sewer, what is that? Janet? It's on page,
The component is for infrastructure and replacement and rehabilitation, so that's for long-term replacement of our deteriorating sections of the city's sewer system.
Part 3, okay. And then Part 4, the 50 cents?
Yeah, this is a new component. It's the effluent contamination maintenance
Okay.
part, and that will help because we have a lot more sewer line obstructions now, and that will help clear those, and because that's a cost to the city to have to clear all
Okay.
those.
Councilman Rue?
Yes, and looking at this, I know we're just, doing what we have to do, but IEUA, I don't have a lot of influence over what they do. It's an elected board. I can talk to them till I'm blue in the face. We're the pass-through agency. I am pleased to see we have continued our senior rate. That's important. The question I have is there something we can do to create perhaps a lifeline rate similar to what the utilities have? We have a lot of families in this city, 20% are at or below the poverty line. They've been hit with massive increases, especially in their utility billing. They're struggling. I hear even from people who are just plain middle class when I talk to people, they think the trash rates are too high. I can explain till I'm blue in the face to them. But is there something we could look into about having a rate where if you are a certain income limit, or income level, that you might be able to get a reduction?
Well, those are tiered rates that you're referring to. So what happens if you're a Southern California Edison customer and you qualify for low income, then if you use a certain amount of electricity, they will give you a lower rate for that amount. But each time you go up above that tier, they increase the amount of money that you're paying. How you translate that to refuse-related services is unclear because people produce refuse. Do they produce it in lower volumes if you're a low income? They might. I don't know that there's a study that determines that. But I think more likely what it is that from week to week, people just have different volumes depending on what they've acquired that particular week and what is disposable, what sort of yard work they're doing. So whether or not one could create a tiered rate for refuse services is indeterminate, and certainly for sewer services, it's indeterminate completely because one doesn't really capture information related to how many times somebody flushes the toilet or uses a sink or otherwise uses water that goes into the sewer system. So for sewer systems, absolutely probably not at all determinable. For refuse, I'm sure it would have to require a study to determine whether or not there's levels of disposal that vary between low income and middle income and upper income that would determine that there's a possibility to do that. So it's probably not something we can answer right now.
If it's not a tiered rate, perhaps a flat discount of 5% or something of that sort. We need to start understanding that there are families who've been pinched and hurt very much. We have families who are basically struggling for day-to-day needs. And they're going to be asked to pay this along with everybody else. There are many people who in their retirement do not have defined benefit plans. Maybe they retire before they're 60. But I'd like to see if we couldn't at some point start to look at how we can do something for our working class, low-income families. I think they deserve better than constantly getting increases on things. I have no control over IEUA unless I go to one of their board meetings and talk to them about this, and perhaps I'll write a letter to them. Perhaps I will show up. But we as a council can do something here, and our working class families who are struggling cannot always afford these increases. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may respond, I understand the nature of the question, but I have to remind the council that Burtech, IUA, they have responsibilities to their employees and their shareholders and the cost of operations. So their rates are what their rates are. The type of rate that is being proposed here is similar to the senior discount rate. You will recall that years ago, there was a special fund that the city had that was funded by the previous waste hauler prior to Burtech. That money was used to subsidize the senior rate. That money expired, and the council made the decision to continue with the subsidy, but it is at the cost of the general fund. So if you were to take that same program and you were to extend it at 20% or 5%, 10%, whatever it is, it would have to be absorbed by the general fund. So the council needs to be aware that if that is a policy decision the council wants to make, it is a impact that will be on the general fund in perpetuity or as long as that discount rate continues. And that discount rate will increase on an annual basis as the rates increase as requested by IUA and Burtech or any other agency that is providing a property-related service fee to the city and its residents.
But it would still be a discount. Even if something goes up, they still
right.
get a discount.
I'm going to give to Councilmember Lopez now.
Yes, one of my questions is relative to the senior discount issue, since we're on topic. In the staff report on page 137, it states that the senior discount will actually increase just by 86 cents, so it's under $1, and that the collective savings per month is $7.74, which equates to a 20% discount for seniors, those 60 and over. I was kind of along the lines of my colleague, Mr. Rue. I know that the general fund absorbs that difference in the discount, but just given all other external factors with respect to inflation and other costs by seniors that they incur from food, prescriptions, you name it, gas, whatever might be, that perhaps we should look at increasing it 25 to 30%. That is an option. And given how we're just talking about dollars, simple dollars here, even a 25 to 30% increase shouldn't be no more than about $10, roughly, give or take some change. But that was one issue I wanted to bring up. I am pleased that it's still in existence and that the general fund is still absorbing that discount. I would like to remind our colleagues, or share with our colleagues, though, our counterparts at Monte Vista Water also initially just implemented a water rate for just a discount for seniors. And it eventually evolved into a tiered structure for income-based to help those residents. And they absorbed it through their budget as well. I think it can be done, and it's something that we should look into. I know coming up this week, we look at the budget. Perhaps we can have a future discussion. I had a question as a notice to myself to ask when the notices have been sent, but Janet, you answered my question on that. They have not yet been sent. Depending on tonight's actions, they may be sent tomorrow, I'm assuming?
They will go to the printer tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they'll have them in time, so we still meet the 45-day notice?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Let's see. I would like to share with the public, based on our staff report on page 134, that these increases, I know we had an increase a year ago, they are not the fault of Burtech. I know that some folks in other cities with other trash haulers make the general accusation that these are just greedy businesses that want to raise rates unilaterally without any justification. And that's simply not the case, at least with respect to us with Burtech. The food recycling requirement that the state has mandated on cities has no doubt caused a huge added cost to business and the industry in general. And Burtech is simply sharing with us that, hey, we're forced to do this. It's costing us X number of dollars. We have to pass it on. And unfortunately, that's a cost of, in my opinion, unneeded legislation in Sacramento. There's a date that the proposed rates would take effect of August 1.
Correct.
However, I noticed that in the staff report, there is loose language that says on or about. So if we're having a hearing on the 19th, and let's say we enact them and approve them then, are the rates going to be retroactive to August 1st, or will they be active the 19th going forward? So we're not going to be backdating residents' bills.
Would be August 1st because we bill in arrears.
Okay. Okay, that explains that.
And then for, we bill 2 months at a time. So for those customers that are billed for July on August and August on one bill, the July would be at the old rate and August would be at the new rate.
I appreciate that explanation. And hopefully those listeners watching this at a future date will understand that and look at their
And
bill.
we always put a note on the bill to that effect. If your bill was for July and August, because we'll get a lot of phone calls, well, it just went up, now it's going up again. So we try to explain that on the bill, that they will see a small increase and then another increase on their next bill, because then it'll be 2 full months at the new rate.
And for the public's benefit, the 90-cent rate that Burtech incurred for this prior year, when this new program requirement took effect, they ate that cost. It is now time for the city to step up and incur that cost. But unfortunately, it's a shared cost by all residents and property owners in the city. So that's something that is new in the sense that it's not new in the sense that it's already been in effect for a year. It's just new that it's coming back to the public. So thank you to Burtech for that. I want to share, though, and I do have some questions with respect to the sewer and IEUA, that residents get charged per household $6.60 a month for the benefit of surrendering household hazardous waste. But most residents, I would venture to say, probably more than 3/4 of residents, don't use that benefit because they simply do not know that it's already paid for. But all they need to do is go to Upland City Yard on Benson Avenue, north of Foothill, and dump oil, paint, pesticide, anything that is hazardous, even medical waste. I'll share a personal experience. I take advantage of it about every 2-3 months because I have to dump syringes and needles up at the yard, and you don't get asked anything. There's no fee. You just get asked your ID, and sometimes they'll just work on the honor system, and you just have to fill out a form and attest that you live within the county. So Montclair residents, if you have any household waste, oil, whatever it might be, paint, please take it up to Upland City Yard every Saturday from, I believe, 7 or 8 a.m. till noon. They stop at noon every Saturday, so please take advantage of it. And thank you for staff and Burtech for continuing that benefit. Again, I alluded to how the cost of the market is forcing Burtech to ask for these increases. Some of these are about $6-7 per barrel per ton that the market's asking Burtech to pay for, and we have to get rid of refuse. It's a public safety issue, public health issue. But Mr. City Manager, could you please, I noticed that the effluent contamination maintenance is a new item that'll be proposed in the upcoming budget. And we're only asking for a 50-cent assessment on per household for that?
Yes, that is correct. We don't anticipate, that's a fee that probably will stay stable for many years.
And that's just to maintain the current sewage system, so our pipes?
No,
No?
no, that is to address the overflow of the effluent out into the streets. It's to address the clogging of the lines. One issue that is very common right now that produces clogging for problems not only for the city but for IUA, that's the use of those wet wipes. They should not be flushed, but people flush wet wipes in massive numbers, and they do not dissolve. What they do is coagulate, and they congeal and meet together in the system, and they form massive balls that cause sewer overflow, causes to back up onto the streets, and cities receive penalties for overflow, as well as forced supervision from the state of California, auditing of our programs to determine why this is happening. and it causes us to have to implement a number of new procedures every time these things occur. So that is the reason for that cost.
And if I'm correct, IEUA already adopted their proposed rates, correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
And in the staff report, they're going to start in July 1 of this year with the rate of $24.79, and then within a 4-year period, that rate goes up to $36.30. So that's about a $12 increase in a 4-year period.
Well, what they adopted was a 2-year rate schedule. So at the end of the 2-year rate schedule, they would be adopting new rates, and we don't know what they are at this point in time. The point of the 5-year schedule that we adopt through the Prop 218 process is to anticipate what their increases will be so that we make certain that those rates will continue to be covered under the maximum caps for a 5-year period. And we are limited to a 5-year period by court decision.
Okay. So they only did 2 years. In our staff report, that is our internal estimate of what we might anticipate.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. I believe that is it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for everyone's clarification and input.
And going back to IUA, since I serve on the Sewage Policy Committee, they're going to do another rate study. It's already started, and that'll be a rate study for next year. I can say that the Policy Committee members, which include Chino Hills, Ontario, Upland, Fontana, and Cucamonga Water District, we've been questioning the rate increases, the EDU rate increases. There are several things happening. There is the sewage treatment plant number 1, which is on the 60 freeway in Ontario next to the Whispering Golf Course. There are a number of improvements are happening there at that plant that are very expensive. The other thing is there's going to be a need for what's called an advanced treatment plant because the basin below us, obviously it's very rich water, but it also has environmental issues. So it's going to need an advanced treatment plant to ensure that this recycled sewage water that is going back in the basin is very, very clean and doesn't expand the environmental concerns. So that's probably going to be about a $300 million plant. They're currently in the planning stages of that. So those are some of the reasons there, but again, I can tell you that the committee itself, I just mentioned the cities involved in Cucamonga Water District, have been zeroing in on this EDU rate increase. So we'll be looking forward to seeing that next study. Anybody on my left have any comments to make? Go ahead. Councilmember Martinez.
I just wanted to say I've had many of the same thoughts as Councilmember Rue, so you're not alone, sir, and your concern for lower income families in our cities. I sat a few months ago with our city manager and asked many of these questions, and he was kind enough to explain many of the reasons that we haven't implemented some of the suggestions that you raised. But one thing that convinced me maybe we should really sit and take a look at our budget before implementing any of these further discounts was the fact that when we provide a service to our residents, that service is something that is going to have to continue in perpetuity, I understand. And the way that our city manager explained it was much better, and maybe if I didn't state that correctly, you can clarify, city manager, but that really does need to be taken into consideration, because just like with retirements and all of the other services that we're currently providing to our residents, we need to make sure that we have the budget to back it up. So as much as we want to continue to provide discounts to our residents, we also have to make sure that we have a budget that can afford it.
Well, thank you. On that topic alone, the hearing notices go out tomorrow. Am I correct, Janet?
Well, they're going to the printer tomorrow.
Going to printer tomorrow, and they're going on the mail sometime in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, they'll be out by the end of the month, for sure.
And so we will hear from our constituents if they have concerns on the increases, if there's economic concerns. We'll hear from it. We'll have a public hearing here in August, and we can go through that process. one question, Mike. Do any of the cities that you directly work with, do they have a tier system for residents' income? Are you aware of any cities that have that?
Mayor, none of the cities that we work with or cities that I'm familiar with,
Okay.
even other haulers, have a tier system. The only thing, and I'll have conversation with city manager, if some cities choose to go with a smaller container, that really doesn't solve the issue because as Mr. Starr mentioned, they still produce that amount of waste.
Right.
But that's the only other thing. If they went down to, say, for example, a 35-gallon container in all 3 containers, there would be a savings in disposal costs on each of those 3 because the cost of service is the same.
Right.
The truck that picks up a 95-gallon container or a 35-gallon container is the same.
Yeah.
So there's some minor savings. I think it's not worth the inconvenience of having less capacity.
Right, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
So I suggest we just go through the process and we'll see where we're at in August. And then we'll have this, we can, you want to know during the budget session, is this is something possible? That's a good question to bring up for Thursday's meeting.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may caution for a moment, I think that Mr. Aragon could also state that not a lot of cities offer the senior discount rate. And there's a reason for that. It's a gift of public funds, and it's discriminatory treatment. So you have to be careful about making these kinds of decisions. The council made the decision to choose the senior discount rate because it was a program that was already in place and funded by a separate fund. But the council decided to continue that program as opposed to getting rid of it. To expand the program, I think, really brings in some complications that I don't think you necessarily want to get involved in. And I would suggest that that's not a direction that we should go. I don't know that you could tier refuse rates. I just don't think that it's applicable in this instance because I don't think there's evidence to demonstrate that any one economic group necessarily produces more or less refuse. And so I don't really see that being applicable. But I just caution you that you need to be cognizant of that going forward.
And I will agree with the city manager's statements. So, since we have no more discussion on consent calendar items, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion for the consent calendar
Second.
presented.
Okay, moved by
Discuss.
Mr. Councilmember Rue, second by Councilmember Lopez, and we'll go ahead and vote, please. And that's adopted. Well, not adopted yet, but now adopted, 5-0. Okay, next item on the agenda is council budget review and adoption. So staff is asking that we meet on Thursday, June 20th, 2024 at 6 p.m. as an adjourned meeting. The items for discussion includes the preliminary budget review and also consideration of adoption of the budget with some other items as part of the budget process. So can I, well, let's say any objections to that? If not, that's so ordered then. So again, we will meet as an adjourned meeting here on Thursday, June 20th at 6 p.m. And now we go to communications. I will start with the city attorney.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just the one item as indicated. I'd like council members to meet in closed session regarding pending litigation, the Dow, Alvarin versus Montclair matter. I have nothing else.
Thank you. City manager?
No items.
Okay, myself, as I mentioned earlier about Monte Vista again, I just make sure I clarify myself. There was an email I think all of you received. The email came out late May from SBCTA. So hopefully, like I said, that major completion of Monte Vista takes place in July. So Edison needs to come out. I saw some guys out there wiring today, so I'm hoping they're part of Edison. They didn't say Edison the trucks, but hopefully it's one of their contracts. And I know that some base paving has already started there. So hopefully here in the next 2 weeks, there's a lot of activity taking place there to finally get that open. When I say open, all lanes open. If it doesn't happen, don't blame me. No, I'm just joking. I did a ride along with Montclair Police Department last Tuesday, and also want to recognize that we had a dinner for our Police Department Reserve and Chaplain, and that dinner went very well. And I know the chief is not here, but the captain was here, and so city manager, and we all enjoyed it, and recognizing these fine individuals who volunteer for the city. I will start with Council Member Martinez.
Well, I thought Marcia was going to report about the movies and concerts in the park that are
Did I
coming
forget
up.
somebody?
Okay.
Oh, this say is none.
Well, I guess I will then. Okay. Well, tomorrow then is the first movie in the park at 8 o'clock, and that will begin the movies and concerts in the park on every following Tuesday from then on out. And the times are different, so you want to make sure that you get your hands on a flyer so you don't arrive at the wrong time. I don't have anything else to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martinez. Councilman Rue, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, I didn't realize the mayor left for a moment. Number one, I like the idea brought up by Mr. Mendez about the catalytic converter etching. This is done in several different jurisdictions around Southern California. I'd like to see if it is possible for us to do it here. I don't know what the costs would be, but perhaps I can talk to the chief. I think it would be a good idea. We can talk about Prop 47 and theft all day long. The bottom line is this is something we can do something about. Etching somebody's catalytic converter. When he brought it up, I remembered the situation of an actor who played on General Hospital. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. I don't watch General Hospital. I'm never home in the day anyway. But he sadly was killed when he noticed somebody trying to steal his catalytic converter. He went over to them, and he probably should have just let them do it because he lost his life over it. You know, if we can etch these catalytic converters for residents in this community, it may be a step to trying to prevent it. We may not have a lot of catalytic converter theft, but they could drive to another city. Many of us work in far-flung areas. We drive to another city, we drive to a meeting, we drive to a family gathering. And the catalytic converter, somebody steals it, at least it's been etched, there's a mark. So I think I'll talk to the chief about that because it has some validity to me anyway. I would also like to mention that today, June 17th, is Eid al-Adha. It is a holy day in the Muslim calendar, and it is something that is recognized by all three major religions. This is for the Muslim religion, it's an observance and a celebration of Abraham's obedience to God when he sacrificed his son Ishmael. And that is something known to whether you are Jewish, whether you're a Christian, or whether you are Muslim. This story is well known. So I wish them much peace at this time of year. On the 19th, which is Thursday, we will mark Juneteenth, or Wednesday rather. Juneteenth is the day in 1865 in the city of Galveston, Texas, that one of the first orders of business by Major General Granger is order number 3. And it said, the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection therefore existing between them becomes that of employer and hired laborer. I want to emphasize that he said an absolute equality of rights. That's why this is a day we should remember. We should etch this into our brain because it is important to who we are as Americans. I also want to recognize that on the 20th, marks 60 years since I will phrase it, the Mississippi burning case. Most people have seen the movie. It is a day that James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner, 3 civil rights activists working to register African American voters in the deep south of Mississippi, disappeared. The official record in the first day or two was that, oh, they just went back home north. They haven't told anybody that they're there yet. Well, 6 weeks later, their bodies were found in an earthen berm. The story since is that many believe that Mr. Chaney died while he was half alive when they put him in this earthen berm, and he died by suffocating to death because there's indications that his hands had grabbed red clay and trying to get out. This is something horrific. We should also remember this so we don't repeat this. Sadly, history, and I'm a student of history, tends to repeat itself, and we need to prevent that. There are other things that are going on in our community and in our world, but one of them, and end on a happier note, I did attend Gold Line JPA this week, as did the mayor via teleconference, and I was in person. The mayor had to be by teleconference, and there's good things moving forward on it. There will be opportunities for the public to become more involved on some things down the line, but we are moving forward. We had a tour earlier in the week in Pomona of the Pomona station, how it will look, the design of it. We actually were able to walk the route that the people who take the train will be walking, whether you're getting off of one train and onto another, or whether you're just parking your car and getting onto the Gold Line. These are positive things for our community, and again, things that will bring us together. The more we use, or the more we look at our mass transit and even our freeways as conduits to bring people together, as much as we complain about traffic on our freeway, it is bringing us to work. It's taking us to some destination. And I look forward to the day the Gold Line is completed. Hopefully it will be in the time of everybody in this room. There are reasons it gets delayed, but we're moving forward on it. And you know, this entire council has been behind the Gold Line, as far as I know. I mean, I haven't heard anybody preaching something different. And it'll be a great day, whether we're all still here or not on this council. It's something this council and a prior council helped to do. We've prioritized it. It still remains probably our #1 priority. And when you have an opportunity to actually see some of the Gold Line stations that are in operation now, look at them and understand the work that went into them. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to report, last meeting I had announced that Montclair High School's baseball coach, along with some current and past board members of Montclair Little League, were holding a baseball camp for boys, I believe, ages 11 to 13 or 11 to 14. Well, they just had that camp, and they were pleased to have at least 12 to 15 boys show up for the 2-day camp baseball training that lasts, I believe, 2 or 3 hours each day or each night. So they deemed that a success, and indeed it was. So congratulations to them, and I hope that next year, should they do it, they get double that amount of participation. Mr. Minnick, I appreciate you coming in and inquiring about Monte Vista and the 10 freeway. I literally live Monte Vista and San Bernardino and drive that way to Upland almost every single day, sometimes 2-3 times a day. It's been a test of patience, to be honest. I know that there were some memes created about 2-3 years ago when it was first being broken up of these old 1920 cars going like this on the street, and people were saying, well, this is us today. And it really was, considering the initial preparations that were taking place then and the progress made today. It's been challenging. The mayor will attest to this. I have shared repeatedly about the merging of lanes and folks not abiding by the lanes that are on striping on the asphalt as to which direction they're supposed to go, and cutting off, and thereby the accidents that happen with folks that are getting rear-ended or just cut off. I know we've had a relative being one of those that got rear-ended and whatnot. And then I witnessed one and stood with that woman until cops came and her husband came because she got rear-ended. So hopefully, all of that will be alleviated come July, barring no unforeseen issues. But thank you for your coming and expressing your opinion. You're not the only one. Other residents have expressed that, especially on Montclair Connects. Just real briefly, it does affect Montclair, so I will comment. Yes, there is a Prop 47 debate. It will address retail theft, theft of catalytic converters, breaking into jewelry stores with mobs going in. I know that one of the jewelry stores at the Montclair Plaza, some friends of ours own that facility or that business, and they suffered, I believe, like somewhere of $500,000 in stolen merchandise and whatnot. But I have a different opinion as to what's going on. The 14 bills in the legislature, they all have an exclusionary clause in it, which states that if the Prop 47 initiative is approved by voters, all 14 of those bills become inactive. And that is a partisan play. I don't care what side you're on, Republican, Democrat, right or left. It is a power play between one party over the other. And it's sad because I do think we need stronger teeth in the law, and the laws have been laxed to the detriment of business owners and residents. And the initial attempt on the ballot is what we need to pass, and the heck with the 14 laws, the 14 proposed bills, because they will do nothing but perpetuate the problem. Yes, my colleague to my right, Mr. Rue, just touched on Juneteenth. I think it is significant. It should be no surprise to anyone. I have been an advocate that we should be giving employees the day off with pay on that holiday. It is no different than the other 6 holidays that are recognized by the federal government. And why we are acknowledging those and not this one, I just think is wrong. I think every employee in the country, not just here in Montclair, should have that day off with pay. And those bargaining units need to fight for that right. And it should be something that we take to heart, similar to what we do with Martin Luther King Day. And it should be something that gets feet and takes hold, and we run with it. Yesterday was Father's Day. So a belated Father's Day to all the dads out there, including those who don't have kids and stepped up and filled the role of dad. You are to be commended. God bless all you fathers for your time, commitment, investment, the provisions you make for your families, for yourselves, for your loved ones, your kids. God bless you richly for what you do. And may it always be Father's Day, not just yesterday, but every day, as well as Mother's Day, which we celebrated a month ago. So thank you for that. And anyhow, I believe that concludes my comments. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your time, and thank you for your time, the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a few quick comments. First, I do want to talk about Juneteenth, and I really would like for people to take a moment to think about what that really meant and what it didn't mean. So while, yes, it was the final announcement of the freedom of the slaves, that does not mean that people who were of African descent were suddenly treated as equals, because they were not. And I doubt that many of them received their 40 acres and a mule. And I can tell you that as recently as in 1988, when my parents had moved, they bought a little ranch in Texas, and I went to visit them. And my mother said, "Do you want to see a real slave plantation?" I was like, "There's no slave plantations, Mom, come on." And she said, "Yeah, there is. I'll show it to you." And she drove me out to a remote area where people who were of African descent were working in the fields. And then as she went around a certain area, she showed me the ramshackle shacks where those people who worked lived. And they lived without amenities like electricity. And I was like, "Well, how do you know that? Have you been in there? How do you know that?" And she said, "I know that because I've driven by here at night and there is no electricity. You can see some flickering lights," she said, "from inside the buildings, but that means they're probably using a candle or a lantern or something, but they don't have electricity." That was as recent as 1988. And I can tell you, even more so than that, even more recently than that, into the 90s, I can tell you that there was very often what happened at least once a week. I would get in the elevator at the end of the day with my business suit and my briefcase, and little ladies would clutch their purse. And the men that were with them would push the lady behind them and glare at me until I got off the elevator. That was in the 90s. So while yes, Juneteenth is important, we need not believe that everybody is treated equally, because that is not the case in this country. And I'm not just talking about people of color, but people of all ethnicities and all religions, and people who are part of the LGBTQ community all face some kind of conflict just because of who they are. And it is my deep desire that that would end. It probably won't happen until my great-grandchildren's lifetime, but I hope that one day America can get there. So that's my comment about Juneteenth. And then I want to let you know that I went to a League of Cities luncheon the other day, and we talked at length about Proposition 47, and I would encourage all of the residents of Montclair to Google that issue, as it will most probably be a very important issue on the ballot, and I think we all need to be well-informed before we get to the ballot box. And on a pretty happy note that I'm pretty tickled about, I am very delighted to present a check tonight to the Montclair Community Foundation for a little over $6,000. And this is from the sponsorships that came from the Country Fair Jamboree. Many of the chamber staff worked really hard to make that happen, and one of our public works staff, Samantha Contreras, she did backflips to make this happen. So we did receive $12,000 a little over $12,000 in sponsorships, and our agreement is that half of that stays with the chamber and half of it stays with the city. So here you go. Can you pass this, please? And also, please mark your calendar and hold the date for our second annual Night in the Garden that's going to be held at the Chino Basin Water Conservation District. Many of you attended last year's event. That was quite well attended for our first WAP, but it's a evening in the garden, but it's also a taste of Montclair. So there will be several Montclair residents there who will be offering samplings of their fare so that you can see what, you can go to certain restaurants and receive. So that date is August 29th at 6 p.m., starting at 6 p.m. It's at the Chino Basin Water Conservation District, and more information will be coming on that. And then probably one of the most important comments that I needed to make tonight, something that we all need to pay attention to. Today is attorney's Diane Robbins' birthday. And I would sing to you, Diane, but if I try that, I could clear this room in 2.5 seconds. But note that we are all very happy to wish you happy birthday. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Great. Happy birthday, Diane, City Attorney Robbins. I won't ask the other question, I'll get in trouble. I don't want you to file a harassment complaint against me. That's great, and so at this time now, we have committee minutes, and now we'll go into closed session. Thank you.